Hi friends, I'm Scott Hanselman.
And I'm Maria Naggaga.
And this is the Microsoft Virtual Academy ASP.NET Core. We're going to talk about learning .NET Core, making websites, doing MVC, doing web APIs, and hopefully publishing to Azure.
Yeah, if we get the time.
If we got the time, we'll do the best we can. We appreciate you spending your day with us. We've got lots of great stuff. We're going to be going at a nice, comfortable pace. And a little bit later, you'll see in the notes, we'll give you links to all of the different modules that we did.
Yeah, they're all up on GitHub. You can contribute to them. You can add to them, use them.
And even better, you could potentially give these workshops yourself.
Oh, yes. People have given them before.
Yeah.
It's been pretty popular.
So we think it'd be really great if you did a virtual academy at your job or at your college or at your community center. So there's an opportunity for everyone to learn .NET.
Yeah, and let us know how it goes. And if you have any issues, flag them.
Very cool. All right, so we're going to start on my machine.
Yeah.
And I've just gone to .net.
That's a really catchy one.
It is. I worked very hard to get that domain.
I know.
Yeah, it's good.
It's a good
so
one.
dot.net, and it takes you to this, this website here at Microsoft.com. And then from there, I can click download. And there are a couple of choices, and we're focused on .NET Core. So I can download .NET Core. And this it will have instructions for Windows, for Mac, and for Linux.
Exactly. And the experience should be the same?
It should be pretty much the same. There are installers for Windows and there's installers for Mac. On Linux machines, depending on the flavor of Linux, you might have to update some things. On Ubuntu, you'll use apt-get, and on Red Hat, you'll use yum. But once it's done, the experience from the command line and the way that you use the tools is identical.
So speaking of the command line, should we get started?
Let's do some stuff from the command line.
So this is television, so everything has been installed ahead of time.
Right, so yeah, just like Julia Childs, I've made the pie, and now the pie is coming out of the oven. It's already made. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go out to the command line, and I'll just jump over to my desktop, and I'll just type .net just to prove that it's there.
And so what are we seeing here on the screen? So we're seeing the version number, we're seeing a couple of instructions.
And then we've got some information about a link we can go to get more stuff about the SDK. The very first time you run this, it might do some unpacking and some preparation, but you just type .net. The important part to know is if you type .net -- help. That's where the interesting stuff is. That's where your commands and things that you're going to do are. So for example, making a new project, building a project, and running a project, which is what we're going to focus on.
Okay, so we're going to look at that. So let's make our very first project.
Let's do that. So we'll go and we'll say,
let's make a directory.
Super MVA directory, and now I've got an empty directory.
Okay, so there's nothing in there. So let's go into that directory.
Okay, so we're there, and there's nothing there, and we'll say .NET
New.
Now what if I just say .NET New and I hit enter?
So that's going to give us a couple of options. And I kind of like this because it's a different kinds of templates that would be available for you.
Exactly. There's a bunch of different options, and I've even installed some extra ones. So I can make a new console app that's like a text mode app.
Yeah.
I can make a new web app that we're going to do later. And then I've even added some for things like Angular or React. These are JavaScript frameworks that we'll talk about in advanced MVAs.
So is this similar to in Visual Studio, and I might be jumping ahead, when you can install different templates as well?
Right. So you could look at .NET New at the command line as being similar to saying File New Project in Visual Studio.
Okay.
So we are starting with the command line here just to give you a sense of what's underneath. And this is important because there are some people who feel that there's a focus on the command line, or that the command line is scary, or that we're forcing everyone to do this.
Yeah.
We just want people to see what's underneath, and we'll be moving quickly into Visual Studio. But when you say File New Project, or you say Build or Publish, ultimately
you can do it here as well.
You can do it here as well.
So it's all about options.
It's all about options. And it's also nice to just know that .NET isn't a black box. You can peek inside, you can see what's going on. So we're in an empty folder. We said .NET New. Let's just make a console.
Yeah, so .NET New Console.
.NET New Console.
All right.
So it says
So what's in the folder now?
Okay. We've got a program.cs, and then we've got a CSproj, or a C# project file with the same name as the folder.
So we're going to have a look at what a CSproj is.
Yeah, we'll look at that. Actually, what I'll do, I'll just open it up briefly in Notepad. It's pretty simple. Now, just a very, very brief callback. There was a time in earlier MVAs and in earlier betas of .NET, where this was called project.json.
Yes.
If you saw that, or if you did that, or if you have projects that are project.jsons, you can open those up in Visual Studio 2017. It will recognize you have an older project type, and it will migrate you.
Yes, I've tried that for a really big project, and it worked just fine.
Worked just fine?
Just fine.
So there are some older examples of that, but you don't have to worry about it. It'll take care of it. So some of the things that we did in previous MVAs will still work if you open those up. And be sure that you're using 2017, Visual Studio 2017,
Exactly.
that you can download at visualstudio.com. Now this is important to point out because there's not much here.
No,
This is empty.
It's very nice and short. But what is happening here? We have something called property groups and output type. So I'm saying that's the output type is that it's going to be an executable, right?
Right, so we're going to make an executable, and we're going to target it is a .NET Core application, and we'll talk about that in .NET Standard in more advanced examples. But we may look at the CS proj when we add a few things to it, but for the most part, I don't think you'll find yourself in CS proj files too often. We'll show you ways to modify those without having to open them in Notepad.
Okay.
All right. So let's look at the code, though.
So, yep.
I'm just using Notepad to show that you can.
Okay.
All right. So what would I do here? I've got a hello world. I could run this and see what it looks like. How do I do that?
So let's go back to the command line.
Okay.
And we have to restore the packages first. So we're going to do a .NET restore.
So those packages that we're going to restore, those are the dependencies that .NET needs. And I say restore packages. And it goes off and it uses some feeds up in the cloud that host. They're called NuGet packages. So when I hit dir, there's a new folder here. And the dependencies, the libraries, the methods that we need are in there.
Okay.
Okay? So now what do I do?
So let's run it. So we're going to do .NET run.
Okay, so I take .NET run.
And we should see what we just saw in the program.cs file. Hello world.
There you go. It worked. Let's see if I can change it and run it again. I'll actually just pull this over here.
Yes, side by side.
And I'll say hello friends. And now I'm just going to go and hit save. And then we'll run that again.
Okay.
So it looks like run is implying a compilation as well, right? So this is a nice experience. I can sit here and make changes very quickly in Notepad, even if I like, and then just say .NET run. What if I made a mistake, though? What if I misspelled something?
Let's see.
And I say .NET run.
It should give you an error, right?
Yeah. So it's actually doing a compilation, and it's telling me, well, console doesn't have rurline. Rurline isn't a thing. So run is implying a build.
Okay.
So let's try this. .NET build. Right, so that makes that. So .NET run implies a build, and I can repeat that experience. I can make my code changes, I can see what the compiler says, and I can move forward. So that works great.
All right, so that means that when someone writes .NET run, a build process is happening just before the application runs?
Yep.
Okay.
It's doing the compilation for you. It's a lot like other things that you see with Python or Node, except in this case it's doing an actual compilation step, and that's what makes .NET run so fast.
All right. One thing that when you're learning how to program for the first time, you do your hello world, but the next step in any CS 101 class is how do you take input and then give it back to the user?
Exactly.
So how do we read a line, right? And how do you write and read lines?
And then maybe take the input and then turn around and put it back out there in the world. So let's update our hello world and make it a little more sophisticated. Maybe we can say hello and then put the person's name.
Okay.
All right. So let's, what do we do here? Let's go and have a name. Okay. And we have console.readLine. Console.writeLine. So if I can read a line, what's going to come out of here is going to be a string.
Yeah.
So we'll say name equals
Just string. Yeah.
that. Yeah. Now I'm kind of old school. Tell me if you think this is dumb. Hello. And then I just say like end of my string, and then I say plus. That's how I used to do it. Like.
That's how I used to do it until recently.
Oh, yeah?
I saw the light.
You saw the light. What is the light? Tell me.
So I'm going to read it out to you because it's a little bit strange.
Okay.
And then we're going to explain what that means.
All right, let's do it.
So in front of hello world, put a $sign. Like it's all about the cash.
So dollar, there you go.
Yeah. And then after hello,
Okay.
put 2 curly brackets, which I think you call curly braces in America.
Yep. Sometimes people call them mustaches because if you turn your head sideways, it looks like a mustache.
Huh. I never thought about that. That is brand new information for me.
Oh, there's a kid at the bagel shop that's got a mustache that like twirls up and it's all kind of fancy. So.
Very Brooklyn.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm going to put name inside.
Ah.
So one thing we should have tested is if yours worked and if mine worked, and see, is it different in any sense?
I'm probably sure that mine works because it's so simple. I've never seen this work before, so I'm interested in checking that out. So .NET Run, we see our hello world. Now it's pausing. It's waiting for input.
Yeah.
Oops. So I'll say Scott, enter, and there it goes. So what is that called? That is C#7, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And it's string interpolation.
String interpolation. Exactly.
And that is something that I heard. I was like, what buzzword is this? And then I checked it out and I was like, this looks so neat.
Yeah, it's pretty slick. It's a very nice way to do things, and it shows you again how quickly we can go and create an application with .NET Core without a lot of effort, and it's modern. It's a new modern way to do things with C#. And for those of you who may have familiarity with previous versions of C#, that's just one example. There's all kinds of fun stuff that we'll be talking about in advanced topics. And you can also go and explore on docs.microsoft.com.
Yes. And it'll bring you to this beautiful landing page. You can actually maybe bring it up for a sec.
Sure, let me do that.
If you go to docs.microsoft.com, I really like this landing page.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Because it's all these different places that you can go and say, if I want to learn about .NET, and you click on there, it has these really good examples. It shows you the different things you can do with .NET.
Yeah.
So this is a great landing spot for people to go to.
You can go up there, you can learn more about C#, some of these great features. So that's nice. All right.
So .NET to me has always been a very web language.
Yeah, I like to focus on ASP.NET. I've always been a web person. We can spend a lot of time at the command line. We could make things without a UI.
Yeah.
We could make services and things, but the fun happens when you get to make HTML.
Exactly. So how do we take this simple console application that we have, right, and make it into a web application, a very low-level, simple web application?
Right. So this is a .NET Core console app, and it uses .NET Core. ASP.NET Core sits on top of that, right? It's a series of libraries that will then sit inside of this. And here's our main. So we have a main. That's our host. .NET hosts this, and the main gets executed. So let's go and add ASP.NET Core as a library.
So it would be a dependency?
Right, it would be a dependency, exactly. And if you remember, when you had me earlier go .NET restore, I was restoring those dependencies. It went out and said restoring packages. And here it said, well, nothing's changed, so I'm not going to do anything. We're going to go and tell this instance of our application, you need ASP.NET as a dependency.
Yeah.
And it's a NuGet package.
It's a NuGet. So there are different ways you can install a NuGet package. You like the command line.
Yeah.
So I believe they must be a .NET command line.
Yeah, we'll do it from the command line, but then when we load up Visual Studio, we'll see it there as well.
Yeah.
So I really think this is special because remember how I said before that you don't have to edit that CS proj. You don't have to look at that project file because it's XML and it might be scary. I'm just going to say .NET add, and I think this is very intuitive, package, and then whatever the name of the package is.
Okay, so Microsoft.
Well, it could be whatever. So it could be foo.bar or whatever the name of the package is, but the one we're going to use, like you said, is Microsoft
ASP.NET Core.
ASP.NET
Core.
Core. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter. And look here. It says adding package reference into project. And then it actually, this is cool, it did the restore for me.
Oh, so you didn't even have to do it.
It was an implied thing. So it pre-did that for me, and now I'm going to just, for educational purposes, I'm going to go and load that CS proj. And again, still a nice clean file. It just added that package reference.
That's pretty cool. So that means if I edited this by hand, I'd have to go in and restore the package.
Right, which might give you a sense of power, because I can go and edit this myself. But in fact, yes, the .NET restore that was automatic, you'd have to do explicitly. But again, I don't have to look in there, which I think is pretty slick.
That's pretty slick.
Yep. Now, if I go and say .NET run again, my app hasn't changed. Just because I added ASP.NET didn't magically turn it into a web application.
Oh, no.
No. But I did add that bit of the dependency information. But what we need now is something that rather than saying hello world, maybe talks to the web in some way.
Yeah.
All right, so how do you want to do that?
So we could do it in the program.cs class, but I would like to add another file
Okay.
called startup.cs. And I kind of like the name of this because it's like, this is where it starts.
Yeah, startup.cs is kind of a convention. It's a way to do things. All right.
So we're going to add a couple of namespaces. So we're going to have the using ASP.NET Core.
Okay, so using system we know gives us like the basics.
Basics
like
of everything,
It gave us console. We added that package and the namespace was?
ASP.NET Core.
Okay.
And then we want a builder, so it's going to be ASP.NET.
Okay, because we're going to build up our application. And I'm going to copy paste here. I know copy pasting causes problems.
The next thing we want to do is that the web also applies some sort of hosting.
Right, so the host is going to hold that application and listen on HTTP, which we probably need as well.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're going to build up our application. It'll have a place to be hosted, and it will use HTTP. And then I know we need to do a namespace.
Moving to the web or hi.
Moving to the web. And a namespace, see I got my mustaches. That's just going to hold that. You can go and learn about C# if you're not familiar. So you said it was going to be called startup.
Yeah, so we need a startup class.
Okay, public class startup.
And then going to have a bunch of curly braces.
Okay. All right.
And then we also need to configure the application.
All right, so this is a convention, right?
Yeah.
This is a standard.
It is.
So a public void configure, just like configure, this is interesting, just like when you have a console app, static void main, like why?
What does that mean?
You got to start somewhere, right? It could have been called start, but somebody called it main one day and that's it.
It's, okay.
Same thing with startup. Someone decided it's called configure and that's where it starts. So the system actually looks for that name configure, but specifically what it looks for is for something that takes an application builder. And if it sees a function called configure with an application builder, it knows that that's where you're going to start out. And we'll talk very, very specifically, though, about how we tell the system about startup, because it doesn't even need to be called startup.
It could be anything.
We could call it anything, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
So we're in configure, and this is going to set our application up.
Yep.
Our application right now is kind of encapsulated in that app variable there, and we say what?
So we want our app to run.
Okay. When it runs.
Context such that.
Okay, context, and then the such that. I like to call that the Anders-Heilberg operator. It's that
Some people call it the fat arrow.
Fat arrow. So there's this context, and then I'm going to open up my curlies again.
So we want it to return something.
Okay, so when it runs, we're going to write out to the response.
Exactly.
Context.response.write.
Async.
Async. We're doing asynchronously because we don't want the application to block when we're doing that. And I'm going to then say hello web.
Yeah.
Now here's where it can be a little bit confusing. You have to make sure that you end your line.
But you also need another set of curly braces.
You got that curly brace, and then you close it up, and then you do that. And then you want to make sure you got to make sure these all line up, you see? There you go.
And that seems to be, if you're using Notepad, that seems like that might be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, if you're using Notepad, that will be a challenge. I'm using Notepad 2.
Oh.
It's one better than Notepad. Wow. There's Notepad++. There's, you can use all kinds of different things. But the point is, if you're using just a text editor, and we like Visual Studio Code, and we'll use that, but you want to use one that matches the braces. So you can see here how these braces are turning color. When I touch them, it's showing you the beginning and the end of that brace.
So where is there the sister brace to the other one?
So there's the start there of the parentheses. There's the brace. There's that brace. So I know that this is probably going to work. So I've made this startup class. But if we recall,
let's go ahead and run it and see what happens.
You want to run it and see if anything happens? .NET run. Okay. .NET Core, ASP.NET Core in Microsoft, the build failed. .NET run.
So it's still doing the same thing.
Why?
Because our program only knows how to do one thing.
Our program knows how to be a main,
Yep.
and it knows how to write out to the console. We never told it about our startup class. Now we said that it was special, that it has a configure and it takes an application builder and it knows all this great stuff about HTTP, but we never hooked up main to start up.
So all your CS files need to know about each other to connect.
Yep, and in this case here, all of that is going to go away. We're still going to have main get run, but instead we're going to tell main to start up a web host.
Okay.
Okay, so we say WebHostBuilder. And then
We want it to listen on use a server of some sort,
yep,
right?
needs to use a web server. The web server's name, the internal one, is just called Kestrel. That's just the name of it.
And it's like, it's tiny, right?
It's a tiny little web server.
Okay.
It's great. It's great for development, and it's just it's a nice small web server. You can use whatever web server makes you happy. We'll talk about that in advanced things. You could use IIS, you may have heard of, or Nginx, or IIS, Apache, whatever makes you happy. All right.
And then you also need it to use startup, right?
That's the trick.
Okay.
So we say use startup, and remember you had me make a class, and you had me call it startup. That goes here. Now I could have called it, theoretically, Fred, something nonsense word. That would need to be the same here.
Yes.
Because what it's saying is, what's the class that has a method called configure that takes iApplication Builder? So here, we're just going to use startup. And then you see how it's kind of funny, we're putting this all on multiple lines here?
Yeah.
That's really this. We're doing this. And we just could go dot, dot, dot. It's called a fluent interface, like building a sentence.
Oh, okay.
But people like to...
It just looks easier to read.
It's easier, it's cleaner. And it can get pretty deep, because you can go dot this, dot this and dot that and keep going on.
I've seen some pretty big ones.
Yeah.
Big riddle ones.
When we make our larger web application, we might see some fluent interfaces get pretty complicated. Yeah. At the end,
we need it to build, right?
Build it.
But one last thing.
Yep, we've made our host, but we have to do something with it.
Yes. So we need to run it.
So host.run. Okay, so we're building up this web. We're saying use this startup, use this web server, put it in this variable, and then run it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's try that. .NET run. All right, so it's saying type or namespace startup could not be found. Okay, so let's think about that. So we tried to compile. We're in a namespace here called super MVA.
Oh.
Yeah, and our namespace over here is
moving to the web.
So I can do one of two things. I could change this namespace to make it the same, or I could say using,
moving to the
making
web.
sure that that is in scope. But even that won't fix our problem, because it doesn't know about WebHostBuilder. Remember when you had me add...
So we have to add the hosting.
Yes.
ASP.NET Core host.
The hosting. We nailed it. Hosting. We could, if we wanted, do it like that.
Okay.
But that's why you do namespaces, because you can't do that every time. It's obnoxious. All right? So let's try that. Ah, look at this.
Ah.
Now listening on localhost 5000. So we've started a web server. And this is interesting because it says application started, press Control-C to shut down, right? It's running, and it's going to keep running until we stop it. So let's go over to our
browser,
and let's go localhost 5000.
Ooh.
All right. Let's make sure that we prove that that's real. There's our program, CS.
Let's go to our startup, CS.
There's our startup. Hello. I'm going to say everyone in all caps. Okay. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to come over here and hit refresh. What's going on? I changed my code. What happened?
You have to restart your application.
I have to restart my app. So I'm going to go back here and hit Control-C. Application is shutting down. I'm hitting the up arrow. You can also, if it makes you happy, you can hit F7.
Oh.
Yeah.
I keep on forgetting about that.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So I hit .NET Run. I run it again.
And that should show up.
Now it's changed.
But that must be tedious.
It is a little tedious.
If you're building something that's a little bit larger than this.
So the word that the marketing people use for this is the developer's inner loop.
Ah, fancy.
Because what's the loop? The loop is make a change, hit refresh, make a change. But I got to do make a change, compile, hit refresh, make a change, hit compile. What I want to do is I want to play in here. I would like to avoid the compile step if I can, I can. And alt-tabbing over to the command line is kind of tedious.
So you want to add something in there that will allow .NET Core to watch your application.
Right. I want it to watch my code, and if the code changes,
make the update.
Make the update and then do the right thing. I'd like to make it so I could have my app and my code here on the one side, and maybe my browser here, and go, make a change, hit refresh, make a change, hit refresh. And that would shorten my inner loop.
Okay. So it seems like we need some sort of tool.
Yes. So .NET has this concept, .NET Core has this concept of tools. And there's a really neat tool that's called the .NET Watcher. Now, there is not currently a way to go and say .NET add tool.
Yeah.
Maybe at some point you'll be watching this in the future, and that will exist.
Let us know how it works.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up that CSproj, and I'm going to add that tool myself. This is one of the rare times that you have to do that. Now, do I need to put it in its own group?
Yeah.
So we'll say item group and item group. And I made a package reference. What is this? This is going to be a
.NET tooling reference.
Yeah, so it's called .NET
CLI,
which command line interface.
Yeah.
Tool
reference.
Okay.
Include.
Okay, and I'm just going to say include. We'll put that in there in a second. And then version 1.0 or whatever the latest version is. And what is it? Microsoft?
Microsoft.net.
Microsoft.net.
Watchers.
Watcher.
Tool.
Tools. All right. So I'm going to go back out here and, I can't run it. I want to say restore. Thank you.
So
look.
Let's see what's happening over here.
Installing Watcher tools. Because it saw that the package has changed, and it went and it got that. So it would go and download that tool. If I look at my folder, nothing's really changed, because this isn't about changing the program. It's about making a tool available that I could then run the program with or do something with. And there's other tools you'll hear about, like there could be tools that will squish your JavaScript or make your images, smaller. This is a tool that's going to help us as developers. All right, so how do I run this tool?
So first of all, what we're going to do is let's run our application again.
Okay, .NET Run.
Oh, sorry. .NET Run actually changes to .NET Watch Run.
Ah, right, because the tool is .NET Watch. So
yes.
if I say .NET Watch, I can then pass in the next command.
Exactly.
So I want to say .NET Watch Run. And watch the difference. This is good. It's good that you had me.
So,
oops, I'm going to actually jump out. You see how this right here happened? This is a ASCII.
Yeah.
Colors. They're trying to change the color right there. And I've gone and made my terminal a funny color.
Okay.
I made it Kermit green. And as I was going and typing color, I was resetting that. So I'm going to go and say .NET Watch Run. So I've just opened and closed. Oh, I wonder why my color's not working. This should change color, but it's not. All right. So it said watch started, and then it said what I saw before with run.
Yeah.
Just want to show that again. .NET Run, hosting environment, .NET Watch Run. I'm actually going to, let me try PowerShell. I want to see why that color is not doing what I thought it would do. I have some weird prompts that I've done to make my my terminal look old school.
I noticed.
And yeah, it's a little goofy. And in doing that, I may have messed up the color for everyone else. So let's see if it makes a difference. There you go.
Yes.
See? So .NET Watch Run. So it says watch started, and then it runs my app, and I can just
go to localhost, run it again.
Still working.
So now if we edit it.
All right. So let's go back to our editor. All right. And we'll say hello, Maria. I'm going to hit save.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to push save and watch this. There you go. Look at that.
Okay.
Now you see the watch. This is coming from run, and that's coming from watch. That's why that color was important. That little moment there where I was having issues with my ANSI, my color.
Yep.
the watch wrapped the run. Watch is the thing that ran run.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So when it says application exited,
Yeah.
I saw a file change, and then it started again. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so let's try this then. That means...
You can just go ahead and refresh your page.
Yeah, so I bet you we can go... Okay, so let's try this. Hello, Scott. Control S, hit watch, hit refresh. There you go. Now our inner loop is smaller. That's pretty slick. So that is a kind of a general hello world for .NET Core. All right. We have seen package reference. So we brought in a NuGet package. We made it an ASP.NET app.
We learned a whole bunch of new .NET CLI commands.
Yep. We use new, we use build, we use run, we use watch, which was an extra command we added.
Yeah.
And we turned a console application into a web application. All right.
Yep.
And we did this all in Notepad. We didn't use anything else.
Nothing fancy.
But in the next module, we'll look at other things like Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, and we'll dig a little bit deeper. Stay with us.
All right.